Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. How are you guys? We're going to take another look at the X-Wing meta. Now, I wasn't planning on making a video on any of the particular systems open, but this last one that just took place in the UK has been quite the buzz of the X-Wing community, and I had several of you guys asking me for this, so here it is. We're going to take a look at the top lists from the UK Systems Open held in Birmingham, the Hyperspace Systems Open for X-Wing 2018. And the reason this has been all the buzz is because there was 500 players there. I don't think I need to impress upon you guys how significant that is. That is a fantastic turnout for a Systems Open. We still, unfortunately, don't have our own Systems Open here in Australia. Not officially anyway. We have what's called the Australian Open, which is held by some of the local X-Wing guys. FFG, if any of you guys are watching, please, we want a Systems Open here in Australia. Now, before we get into this, full disclosure, we're going to have a look at the top 16 lists. Despite the fact the cut was 64 players, I felt to make this video nice and succinct, we're going to stick to my formula of just doing the 16. Plus, it's also worth noting we don't actually have all the data for the top 64 players. In fact, annoyingly, we are actually missing one of these lists from the top 16. So I'm actually going to look at 15 out of the top 16. And look, rather than complain about that, I'm going to use this as a platform to say, hey, FFG, if you're watching, we as a community love this kind of stuff. We love looking at tournament rankings and results. If you could offer this to us in some kind of official way, that would be fantastic. All the information I've got here is from the List Juggler website, hosted by the Scum and Villainy podcast. If you like this kind of stuff, please go there, check it out, consider supporting their Patreon because they do an absolutely stellar job. So yes, just missing the one list unfortunately, but we have to remember guys, this is all done by the X-Wing community. Sometimes we just can't get all the information. Right, without further ado, let's look at the stats. And starting off with the faction breakdown, we had 2 Scum lists, 5 Imperial and 8 Rebel, pretty much continuation of everything we've been seeing. Rebels dominating big time, Scum really struggling, and the Imperials pretty much being second best. Although I say that with trepidation because there's been a weird kind of trend in all the tournaments I've been looking at in particular, in that Imperial rarely has the most lists but often wins tournaments, and this is no exception. The winning player did play Imperial, so that's kind of cool to look at. We had a total of 9 big ships and 33 small ships, and the sizes of the squads were we had 5 lists of 2 ships, 8 lists of 3 ships, and 2 lists of 4 ships. Moving on to the ships being flown, the winner in this top 16 was by far the Azatec gunship, and we're going to have a look at what was flown in specific very soon. But if this tournament is any indication of what's going on with the meta, and look, let's face it, it should be given how big it was, the Azatec gunship is massively a force to be reckoned with. It's sitting in such a good place right now. The second most flown ship was Quick Draw in the entire SF. In fact, every single Imperial list in this top 16 ran Quick Draw. We had 4 Sheathipede shuttles, again a very popular ship, 3 of the Rebel Captain Nim in the Skurg bomber, 2 aggressors, obviously that's a robot list right there, IG-88B and C, 2 Lambda class shuttle in 2 Palpaces list, 2 TIE advanced prototypes, 2 Lancer pursuit craft and a Sarge and a Ketsu, and 1 of all of Epsilon Ace in the TIE FO, Kylo Ren in the TIE Silencer, Rey in the YT-1300, Rear Admiral Shenru in the VT-49 Decimator, Jess Parva in the T-70 X-Wing, Darth Vader in the TIE Advanced, a Rogue Squadron pilot in the Alpha class Starwing, Miranda Doney in the K-Wing, a Lothal Rebel in the VCX 100, Zeb in the Attack Shuttle, Rourke Gunner in the Hawk 290, and a Gold Squadron pilot in the Wiring. A massive array of ships and a massive array of variety happening in this tournament. Always great to see. And on the back of that, let's have a look at some of these lists that featured the Azatec gunship. We had 1 player flying this, which has become known as the Magic Carpet Ride, 4 Kashyyyk Defenders with Wookiee Commandos. A really great, simple raw frame build. Always love to see this doing well. But I think what's most interesting about that fact is we also had this by Robert Ram, and this list actually managed to make the top 4, and this harkens back to what I was talking about previously with the Azatec gunship, and it really solidifies my point that it is sitting in such a good place. If you can fly generic spam lists, as in multiples of the same ship, in different amounts, as in we can see a 3 of and a 4 of the same ship, you know that the ship must be performing well at different squad point costs. The fact of the matter is you can push this ship all the way up into the high 30s and it still performs well. And you can still keep it as low as 25 points with a Kashyyyk Defender and Wookiee Commandos. And that's usually a sign that a ship is quite pushed. Perhaps overperforming, arguably. I'm not going to say that right now. I don't think this is an unfair ship by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on going forward. Let's see what happens to the ship moving forward when we have different upgrades to give the Rebel faction. And in any case, I love this list here by Robert. This is just really cool. Great basic utility. The firepower is disgusting. Lorik with Predator and those Liberators with expertise is going to punch super, super hard. And look at that stress control. 3 tacticians on 180-degree arcs. That is going to be nasty. And continuing on talking about the Rebel faction, we also had a Nim Miranda being flown. This one's a bit different from the norm. We have selflessness on Captain Nim, and what I'm assuming must be going on here is it is a meta call. It is a reaction to how people deal with this list. If people are going to be targeting Miranda first, selflessness, of course, has value. Whether it's better than VI on Nim remains to be seen, but you have to give this credit. It made a top 16 at one of the biggest tournaments in the last few months, and that is not insignificant. We also have cluster mines on Miranda Doing. That's cool. The way we've been able to afford them here is by taking proton bombs off of Captain Nim, giving him a bit of a lighter build, giving Miranda a bit more of a heavier build, which is interesting. That's possibly the reasoning behind putting selflessness on Nim. By stacking more points on Miranda, there is always the risk that players are going to pick up on this and going to target your more expensive ship. And perhaps having the answer for that situation is just what this list needs. And moving on to all but one of the remaining Rebel lists, let's take a look at these because I didn't want to highlight any one of these in particular because I wanted to show you guys a comparison between all of them, because what we're seeing here is what I would describe as good stuff lists. In that we have good high value lists, but they don't rely on super hard synergies. But I know Fen Ghost has been a meta list for quite some time now, but if you have a look at the rest of these, you can see that you can chuck Fen on these different lists and he usually performs quite well. I'm not surprised, he's a fantastic pilot. But looking at the top one in particular, Rourke Garnett with a Stress Bot, Fen Rao and Ezra Bridger, they're all fantastic ships in their own right. Absolutely no criticisms to have there. It's just interesting that we can chuck these guys together and make them fly effectively. Jess Parver, Captain Nim and Lorik, nice spicy list. Kind of a take on the old Miranda Lorik bigs that used to be flying around before that nerf happened. Jess Parver and Lorik are going to have a good time together, but apart from that, there's no real super synergy. I mean, Captain Nim isn't exactly going to want to be dropping bombs around other ships that want to stay within range one of each other. And the same thing with Lorik, Ezra and Captain Nim. It's the same kind of issue, but it's perfectly functional because these are all strong ships unto their own right. And it just goes to show probably one of the big reasons why the faction is functioning so well. It just has so many good competitive options with the Azatuk, with the Skirk-Bomber, and with the Sheathopede in particular. Those recent additions in the past half year have been very powerful for the faction. And before we cap off the Rebel faction, we're going to jump over to the Scum faction. We only had 2 lists here, Asajj and Ketsu. One of the stronger options the faction has right now. Asajj in general is a very strong option, probably because it's simply one of the most competitive ships the faction has right now. It can function solo pretty well. It has great control in both stress and tractoring if that's the kind of loadout you give it, but it's a great versatile ship. And what we've been seeing in recent tournaments is Asajj and what else can you put with it? And Ketsu is one of the great many options. Of course, being able to fly both of these together is fantastic. You have the same dial, you have the same ship. As a pilot, it's always nice and easy to track 2 of the same ship on the board. And if you get those pilot abilities working together, you have just massive, disgusting control, and that's always great fun. The other Scum list was very interesting. We had a Brobots list make the top 16 of what is not an insignificant tournament, and that is really good. I've been talking a lot in these videos recently, guys, about signs that the meta is in a healthy place, and the fact of the matter is, if a Brobots list can get to the top of a 500-person tournament, that's a really good sign. This is not a super competitive meta list. It was back in the day, but even so, it wasn't this version of the list. This is push the limits and advanced sensors. That's a variant that hasn't performed great over the time. Usually the most successful versions of this list use Crackshot, glitter stim, fire control systems, and heavy laser cannon. These lists use none of that. We have the old staples in auto thrusters and IG-2000, but these both have ion cannons and tractor beams, so you have a nice control build. Rigged cargo chute, a great 1-point investment to put on this ship, and even IG-88C has ion bombs just to add a bit more spice, so it looks like what this is trying to do is trying to go for the control win. Push the limits advanced sensors is going to give you the perfect positioning. It's going to make your controlling really hard to deal with. It's going to make these guys potentially really good arc dodgers, if that's possible at Pilot Skill 6. And look, I think after the Victorian Regionals, when we all take a break from all our stupid medalists that we're playing, I'm going to have to give this one a go, because this one looks so much fun. And personally, I love push advanced robots. It's such a fun list to fly. And jumping over to the Imperial faction, we had a couple of this Palp Ace list, which is just doing fantastically in tournaments all around the world. We have 2 of them in the top 16 of this tournament, and I am hardly surprised. It's insane. It's really good. It's a kind of a modern take on Palp Aces. We have Quick Draw instead of an Arc Dodger. And Quick Draw is really good at just controlling the situation, getting those extra shots off, and just winning damage races, which is kind of weird for Palp Aces. If you think of this compared to the old Sunterfell and Vader list, this is just completely different. Well, completely different in one of the aces anyway. The Inquisitor is very much what this list has always wanted to do. He's been in Palp Aces for a long time now, and there's no surprising he's a fantastic attacker, a fantastic arc dodger, and so competitive at 31 points. And speaking of Quick Draw, here's all but one of the remaining Imperial lists. And as I said before, every single list on the Empire included a copy of Quick Draw. That's fantastic. We have Quick Draw alongside Rear Admiral Shenru. Big fat little ship alongside Rear Admiral Shenru is always a great fun build. And we also had a generic kind of Aces build in Darth Vader, Quick Draw, and a Rogue Squadron Veteran. The Rogue Squadron Veteran over a Palp Shuttle is interesting because you get a nice Alpha Striker, and that is not insignificant. Vader also has cruise missiles, and Quick Draw also has harpoon missiles, so the 2 other aces in this build can also do that Alpha Strike, and then towards the end of the game, sure, you might lose your Alpha Class Starwing, but then you have Vader and Quick Draw on the table, so it's interesting, the idea that you can Alpha Strike and keep your aces to do the cleanup and then win in the mid to late game. Very interesting take on Imperial Aces. I like the thinking behind that. Okay, and let's move along to the top table. This was the runner-up, Ray Lowerick. I love this list. Really hard to fly against, really powerful. I don't need to say much. Ray is just another fantastic option that the Rebel faction has right now. This is no crazy variation on the archetype. This is the standard Ray build that does really well. Expertise, Finn, Kanan Jarrus, engine upgrade, and the new Millennium Falcon. Value, 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 value. That Kanan Jarrus is doing so much work, that Finn's doing so much work. Expertise, you're always punching like a brick. It's an incredible build, it's not cheap, but it is super impactful and completely justified. This Lowerick build isn't what we'd call standard, but it works really, really well. Expertise, because why not? You have the points. C-3PO, so he's hard to target and hunt down first. And Tactician, because Tactician on the attack gunship is fantastic. Just having a little bit of stress control on this list is not insignificant. If you can just force your opponent to do a green move they didn't want to do on one particular turn, you can capitalize off the back of it by using Ray, use those S-loop, get the perfect shot, and just take over the game from that point. Tactician is a very unassuming yet sometimes very explosive upgrade, and I can completely understand why it's been put in this list. But without further ado, here it is. Here is the winner of the 500-person 2018 UK Systems Open, Martin Shivers, and this is really cool. This doesn't seem to lean on any kind of common archetype. Very flavorful. It's a first order list, and it kind of reminds me of that scene from The Last Jedi as well, where we have Kylo Ren flanked by 2 of his high-ranking first order fighters. Quick Draw and Epsilon leader. Yep, Quick Draw, pretty standard build. We don't have expertise because we don't have the points to spend on it, but Veteran Instincts is always a great choice. Fire control systems, advanced optics, lightweight frame, and spec ops training. Yep, just all great high value stuff. Can't complain about anything there. Epsilon Ace has nothing on him. That's absolutely fine. This is the kind of part that does not suffer from having no points spent on him, because 17 points for a PS12 that, well, if you ignore him, he just stays a PS12. That is so good. And alongside Quick Draw and Kylo, you can just force your opponent to have to ignore him, because if you ignore Kylo or Quick Draw, then they could take over the game. And yes, Kylo Ren, this is the more standard kind of arc dodgy build. Push the limits, advanced sensors, advanced optics, auto thrusters, and first order vanguard. And I think for this list, this makes the most sense. You want the most flexibility you can get out of Kylo. VI, fire control, and threat track is always good fun, but push the limits is just way too valuable on that frame. With all that green on the dial, with all those actions, it is just so potent. But once again, I just want to take a step back and point out this is not a meta list. It's great. I love it. I like everything it's doing. But even between all the lists in the Australian regionals I've reviewed, we've not seen anything like it. And I think this is one of the reasons that FFG specifically made an article on this. The meta feels like it's in a really good place right now. This is testament to that, and FFG just want to scream from the highest mountain, look how good the meta is, we've fixed it. Maybe I'm being a tad cynical there, but that's my impressions of what's going on with that. In any case, Martin, if you're watching, congratulations, and look, and if any of you guys in the comment section went, please tell me how it was. It looked like it was an awesome day, an awesome tournament, and most importantly for this video, a great snapshot of what's going on in the X-Wing meta. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, like us on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and I will catch you later.